Garnish orders are the bane of many South Africans' lives. Recently, Bobby Goodsell, chairperson of Business Leaders SA, has said that if he were a mine manager, he would refuse to enforce garnish orders against mine workers' salaries. Zach King from Debt Free is here, as is Tony Ehrenreich from Kasatu, and we are also speaking to Kim Westdijk from Summit Garnish Solutions. Garnish orders. Kasatu, Tony, what is your take on it? How big a problem is garnish orders to ordinary South Africans and ordinary South African workers?
Well, I think it's part of the general problem that people are over indebted. People get debt too easily, and then when they can't pay, as is inevitable, then the garnish orders is attached to them. And it takes a huge proportion of people's income, and that's underpinning a lot of the pressures for increased wages, because the amount of money taken out of the salaries of workers through garnish orders are just becoming exorbitant.
We are finding that you're looking at workers even going home with no money, with absolutely no money. Some of them going home with as little as 10% after garnishes have been deducted. Is that a reality to you?
Absolutely, and a large percentage of our members are complaining about the garnish orders. Well, this is a consequence of the debt that they get. But really, there should be a restriction on the amount of money that can be attached on the worker's salary. Historically, that used to be the instance in certain industries, but these days, the garnish orders can take up to 90% of your salary, and that's the kind of measures that should be stopped. But we must also start by stopping on the amount of debt that people are given. That's largely unsecured. Yeah.
Zach, what is your take on this? I know the unsecured debt from 2011 to 2012 rose by 120 billion rand, from 322 billion to 440 billion rand. That's huge. Somewhere along the line, this bubble is going to burst. What is your take on garnish orders and the unsecured debt?
Well, unsecured credit, of course, has been given out left, right, and center. People have qualified for it, but they may be not managing it properly. And the problem, of course, comes when we have an equal amount of people gaining credit or access to credit, and at the same time, the same kind of numbers rolling over into being over-indebted, being unable to repay their credit. So you're having, let's say, 150,000 people gain access to credit, and at the same time, on the other end of the market, you're having about 150,000 people falling 3 months behind on the credit that they're using. So it's a huge issue, and of course, creditors want to collect on their debt, so they're making use of the garnish system or the EAO system. And what we're looking at is it being abused really, or is it something that's functional and needs to be used properly?
Kim, what is your take on this? What are you thinking in terms of the National Credit Act, in terms of certain amendments that could be made to the Act, which could better facilitate the garnishing process? Because obviously what we've got in place now just isn't working. It's not functional. It's not, ordinary consumers cannot live with the system that is in place right now.
Sorry, I hope I heard you correct, that you asked about amendments to the National Credit Act and how that should impact on garnishee orders. Is that the correct question?
Yes, it is.
The National Credit Act has very little National Credit Act problem, and that is the of South African employees. That is the real problem. Garnishee orders is a mere symptom of this problem, and garnishee orders and the irregularities and abuses that go with it are mostly governed by the Magistrate Court Act. And there are various flaws in the Magistrate Court Act. When I say flaws, I mean the balance of power really sits with the judgment creditor and the collector. So amendments to the Magistrate Court Act can certainly assist garnishee orders. Amendments to the National Credit Act. The National Credit Act does not have too much to do with garnishee orders, although it will address the main problem of South Africans being over-indebtedness and especially reckless lending. So providers lending recklessly.